There's water slides that your kids go on at the local pool. And then there are water slides that are taller than office buildings, built by engineers who clearly decided at some point in their careers that making people scream was a more interesting application of physics than anything they'd learned in school. So today, I'm counting down 10 water slides you should never go down. And we're starting with one that puts you inside a shark tank. 10, through the pyramid, into the deep. Dubai doesn't do anything small, but this one isn't Dubai. This one is the Bahamas, and the slide is built inside a replica Mayan pyramid on a resort island called Atlantis Paradise Island, which already sounds like someone named it during a fever dream. But stay with me, because the slide itself is genuinely strange. The drop is 60 feet. That's roughly the height of a 6-story building, and it's nearly vertical. You don't ease into it. You don't get a gradual slope that builds your confidence before the real thing. The slide commits immediately, and so do you, whether you're ready or not. But the drop isn't the part people remember. At the bottom of the slide, the tube levels out and passes through a transparent tunnel running beneath a lagoon. Not alongside it, beneath it. The water above you is the lagoon, and the lagoon is not empty. Atlantis Paradise Island maintains one of the largest open-air marine habitats in the world. Over 50,000 marine animals in the surrounding waterways. And some of those animals are sharks. So you're in a clear acrylic tube, moving at speed, and the sharks are at eye level. Not behind glass in the traditional aquarium sense. Above you, around you, the tube threading through their habitat like a straw pushed through a fish tank. The slide is called Leap of Faith, which is either a very good name or a very on-the-nose one, depending on how you feel about sharks. The engineering required to run a water slide through a functioning marine environment is not trivial. The tube has to be structurally transparent, pressure sealed, and maintained without disturbing the animals. The resort has been operating this since the late 1990s, which means they've been threading tourists through a shark lagoon for over 2 decades without significant incident. That's either a testament to the engineering or a very good streak of luck, and probably both. The slide itself is part of a larger water park called Aquaventure, and the Mayan pyramid it descends from is called the ziggurat, a 12-story structure that serves as the centerpiece of the whole complex. You climb it. You look down. You make a decision about your relationship with gravity and marine biology. Then you go. The photographs taken at the bottom are something. Not because of the writer's expressions, though those are notable, but because the background of every photo is a shark tunnel and the writers are always looking straight ahead, which is the correct choice and also the only choice because there's nowhere else to look. Leap of Faith is still operating. It's still one of the most recognizable water slides on Earth, and the sharks for their part have never seemed particularly interested in the tourists passing through their living room, which is either reassuring or the most unsettling thing about the whole arrangement. Number 9, Summit Plummet, Disney's most honest ride. Disney's not typically associated with terror. The brand runs on nostalgia and controlled delight, the kind of experience where the scariest thing is a queue time and the most dangerous object is a churro. So it's worth pausing on the fact that Disney built a water slide that genuinely, measurably frightens adults. Summit Plummet is at Blizzard Beach in Orlando, Florida. The theming is a ski resort that melted. Fake snow, fake icicles, chairlifts, the whole premise. And sitting at the top of the fake mountain is a slide framed as a ski jump, 120 feet tall. That's roughly equivalent to a 12-story building, and the drop is close enough to vertical that the difference is academic. Riders hit 65 miles per hour. That's faster than the legal speed limit on most American highways, and you're achieving it in a swimsuit, on water, with no seatbelt and no vehicle. Just you and a chute and the understanding that physics is not going to make an exception for you. The slide doesn't ease you in. There's no gentle curve at the top to build momentum gradually. You sit, you cross your arms over your chest, you cross your ankles, because the instructions are specific about this. And the reason they're specific is that if you don't, the water impact at the bottom will correct your posture in a way that's memorable for the wrong reasons. Then the mat drops, and that's it. The whole ride takes about 8 seconds, and then there's the photographs. Blizzard Beach, like most modern water parks, runs a camera at the bottom of Summit Plummet. The images it captures are among the most shared water park photographs on the internet, not because they're flattering, but because they're honest. The expression of pure Disney-era panic, frozen at the moment of maximum velocity, is a specific and reproducible human face. The park sells prints. A lot of people buy them. Summit Plummet opened in 1995 and has been running continuously since, which means it has been producing that photograph for nearly 30 years. It's passed through multiple generations of riders, people who went as teenagers and brought their own teenagers back. The slide doesn't change. The expression does not change either. What Disney understood, and what makes this entry interesting, is that the theming does real work here. The ski jump framing means you're standing at the top of something that looks like a sports facility, which your brain processes as structured and intentional. The fake snow and the chairlift and the mountain backdrop all say, this is a controlled environment. Someone has thought this through. And they have. But the slide itself doesn't care about any of that. It's 120 feet of near vertical drop, and the theming stops mattering about 2 seconds in. The walk-up is part of the experience too. Blizzard Beach routes you past the slide on the way to the entrance, so you can watch other riders come down before you commit. This is either a feature or a warning system, depending on your perspective. Most people who watch for a while get in line anyway. Some don't, and that's a legitimate outcome. Summit Plummet has been open for nearly 3 decades, and the option to turn around at the top has always been available. The slide has never required you to go. It just makes the decision feel like yours, right up until the moment it isn't. At number 8, Daredevil's Peak, where the ocean watches. Royal Caribbean is a cruise line. That's the context. You book a cabin, you sail the Caribbean, you eat at the buffet, and your fellow passengers are largely people who wanted a holiday that didn't require too many decisions. And then Royal Caribbean built a private island in the Bahamas called Perfect Day at Coco Cay, and on that island they installed the tallest water slide in North America, 135 feet. That's roughly a 13-story building standing on a Bahamian island, operated by a company whose primary business is ocean liners. Daredevil's Peak opened in 2019 as part of a significant development of the Coco Cay Island. Royal Caribbean invested around $250 million into the destination, transforming it from a basic beach stop into a full resort facility. The slide sits within a water park called Thrill Water Park, which charges a separate admission on top of the cruise fare. So you've already paid for the cruise, you've already paid for the island upgrade, and now you're standing at the base of a 135-foot tower deciding whether to pay again for the privilege of coming back down faster. Most people do. The climb to the top is exposed. There is no enclosed stairwell, no gradual reveal. You ascend an open structure and the view builds with every step. By the time you reach the platform, you can see across open ocean in multiple directions. The island is flat and low, which means the slide tower is the highest point for a considerable distance. You're not looking at a resort skyline, you're looking at the Atlantic. Riders reach 60 miles per hour on the descent. The slide itself is a body slide, no mat, no raft, and the chute is enclosed for most of the drop before opening out near the bottom. The enclosed section is deliberate. It removes the visual of the ground approaching, which the brain would otherwise use to brace against. By the time you can see where you're going, you're almost there. But here's the detail that makes Daredevil's Peak genuinely different from a land-based water park. Your fellow passengers, the ones who looked at the slide from the beach bar, assessed the situation and ordered another drink instead, are watching. Not anonymously, the way a stranger watches you at a theme park. These are people you're going to have dinner with tonight. People who will see you at breakfast tomorrow. People who watched you make the decision and are now watching you live with it, one way or another. The social geometry of a cruise ship is specific. Everyone knows everyone, at least by sight, by day 3, and the slide is visible from the beach, from the pool area, from most of the island. The choice to go or not go is not a private one. Royal Caribbean reported that Coco Cay became one of the most visited cruise destinations in the world following the redesign. The water park draws consistent lines throughout the day. Daredevil's Peak, being the headline attraction, draws the longest. The slide holds the North American height record for a water slide on a private island, which is a narrow category, but it's a real one. and the slide earns it without qualification. 135 feet, 60 miles per hour, open ocean in every direction, and your tablemates watching from the sand. The sensible option, as always, is the beach bar. A lot of people choose it. The slide doesn't hold that against them. 7. Insano. And the walk that got its own name. Roughly 30% of people who climbed at the top of Insano choose not to ride it. That's not a rumor or an estimate someone made up to sound dramatic. That's a figure reported by staff at Beach Park in Fortaleza, Brazil, where the slide has been operating since 1989. 1 in 3 people makes the full climb, stands on the platform, looks down, and decides against it. The walk back down the access stairs became so common it developed its own informal name among park regulars. The name varies depending on who you ask, but the phenomenon is consistent and well documented enough that the park staff had a word for it. That's the level of refusal rate we're talking about. Insano is 135 feet tall, the same height as Daredevil's Peak, which we just covered, but the similarity ends there. Where Daredevil's Peak is a modern engineered structure with enclosed chutes and controlled descent geometry, Insano is essentially a near-vertical pipe. The chute is enclosed, which removes your visual reference for how fast you're falling, and the angle is steep enough that riders reach 65 miles per hour before hitting the splash pool at the bottom. The whole descent takes approximately 5 seconds. 5 seconds from platform to water. That's it. That's the entire experience you climbed 14 stories to have. Insano held the Guinness World Record for the tallest water slide on Earth from 1989 to 2002. 13 years as the undisputed record holder. During that period, it became one of the most recognizable water slides in the world, appearing in travel features, extreme sports coverage, and the kind of list you're watching right now. The record eventually passed to a taller slide, but Insano's reputation didn't diminish with it. If anything, losing the record clarified something about the slide's character. It was never really about the number. It was about what the number felt like from the top. Beach Park itself is a serious facility. It's one of the largest water parks in South America, consistently ranked among the top water parks globally, and it operates with the kind of infrastructure you'd expect from a park that's been running a world record slide for over 3 decades. The slide is maintained, inspected, and staffed. It is not a relic. It runs daily. But the 30% figure is the thing that stays with you, because every other slide on this list has a refusal rate too. Every extreme water slide does. But Insano's is documented specifically enough that it became part of the slide's identity. The Walk of Shame is as much a part of the Insano experience as the ride itself. Maybe more so because more people have done it. The platform at the top is exposed. You can see the park below, the surrounding city, the coastline. Fortaleza sits on the northeastern tip of Brazil, and on a clear day, the view from the top of Insano extends to the Atlantic. The slide does not face the ocean, but the ocean is there in your peripheral vision while you're standing on a platform trying to decide whether 5 seconds of 65 miles per hour is something your body and your judgment are currently aligned on. Most people eventually go. The line moves, the slide keeps running, and the 30% who don't, they've seen the top. That counts for something. 6. The tallest water slide in Europe is not in Spain, not Italy, not France, not one of the big Mediterranean resort countries that have been building beach infrastructure for decades. The tallest water slide in Europe is in Gothenburg, Sweden, at an amusement park called Liseberg, and it's a raft slide, which means you're not falling alone. Captain Spacemaker stands 138 feet tall. That's a 14-story building in Scandinavia, at a park that opened in 1923. Liseberg is one of the oldest amusement parks in Europe, a century-old institution that started as a trade exhibition venue and gradually became one of the most visited tourist attractions in Sweden. And at some point in its long institutional history, the people running it decided what the park really needed was a multi-person raft slide taller than anything else on the continent. The raft is the detail that changes the experience in ways that are harder to quantify than height or speed. On a body slide, you're alone with your decision. The physics are between you and the chute, and whatever happens to you specifically. On a raft slide, you're sitting in a circular inflatable vessel with other people, strangers, family members, whoever the ride operator assigns to your group, and you are all going to experience the same drop at the same moment, in close proximity, with nowhere to look except at each other. The group dynamics under genuine gravitational stress are not always dignified. That's not a criticism. It's an observation about what happens to human social behavior when a 14-story drop removes the usual filters. People who were strangers at the top of the queue are briefly, involuntarily, very honest with each other on the way down. Captain Spacemaker reaches speeds of around 50 miles per hour on the descent. The raft doesn't travel in a straight line. Raft slides are designed with banked curves and directional shifts that move the weight of the vessel around the chute, which means the experience is less predictable than a body slide. You don't know which direction the raft will be facing when you hit the splash pool. Neither does anyone else in the raft. That uncertainty is engineered in. Liseberg opened Captain Spacemaker as part of its ongoing expansion, positioning it as the headline attraction in the park's water ride offering. The park draws around 3 million visitors annually, which makes it one of the most attended amusement parks in Northern Europe. The slide is marketed with the kind of straightforward confidence that comes from knowing you have the tallest structure of its type on the continent. The name, Captain Spacemaker, does not explain itself, and the park does not appear interested in explaining it either. If you're enjoying the video, drop a like and a comment. It really does help the channel out, and we're just getting to the entries where the numbers start to become genuinely difficult to picture. So stay with it. The climb to the top of Captain Spacemaker is open-sided, which means the 138 feet builds in your awareness as you ascend. By the top platform, Gothenburg is visible in multiple directions: the city, the harbor, the surrounding landscape. It's a Nordic industrial port city, and it looks exactly like that from the top of a 14-story water slide. Functional, flat, very far below. The raft is already waiting. The operator loads the group, and then the slide does what it was built to do, which is send a circular inflatable carrying multiple adults down 138 feet of engineered chute at 50 miles per hour, with no particular concern for anyone's composure. Liseberg has been running rides since 1923. They know what they're doing. That's either comforting or beside the point, depending on where you're sitting in the raft. 5. Thrillagaskar, inside the mall, under the roof. Inside a shopping mall in East Rutherford, New Jersey, there is a water slide that stands 142 feet tall. Not near a mall, not adjacent to one. Inside the American Dream Mega Mall, underneath a roof, surrounded by retail units, food courts, and a Nickelodeon-branded theme park that occupies a significant portion of the building's interior square footage. 142 feet is roughly a 14-story building. The American Dream Mall is large enough to contain a 14-story water slide and still have room for an ice rink, an indoor ski slope, and a miniature golf course. The building's total floor area is around 3 million square feet, comparable to nearly 53 American football fields under a single roof. The water slide is not the strangest thing in the building. It's close, but it's not the strangest. Thrillagaskar is the headline attraction of the Nickelodeon Universe water park within the mall. The slide is a body slide, no raft, no mat, and the descent covers 142 feet in a chute that moves through the interior of the building, which means the visual context during the ride is not sky and landscape, but ceiling, structural supports, and the architectural interior of a very large shopping center. The absence of sky is the detail that changes everything. On an outdoor slide, your brain has a horizon. It has peripheral information, trees, clouds, the surrounding landscape, that helps it orient to space and speed. Indoor slides remove that reference entirely. There's no horizon. There's no weather. There's no sense of being outside the building and therefore outside the normal rules of what buildings contain. You're inside a mall, which is a controlled commercial environment, and you're also falling 14 stories. The two facts don't resolve each other. They just coexist, which the brain finds genuinely disorienting in a way that outdoor slides don't replicate. The American Dream Mall itself has a complicated history. The project was originally conceived in the early 2000s, changed developers multiple times, sat partially constructed for years, and finally opened in phases beginning in 2019 and 2020, with the water park opening during a period when large indoor gatherings were subject to significant public health restrictions. The building had been under development for nearly 2 decades before the water park opened. The slide was worth waiting for, depending on your relationship with indoor vertical drops. Nickelodeon Universe is the brand operating the water park, which means the surrounding environment is themed to children's television properties, bright colors, character imagery, the visual language of a network that has been producing children's entertainment since the early 1980s. Thrillagaskar sits within this context. You queue in a Nickelodeon-branded environment, you climb a Nickelodeon-branded tower, and then you drop 142 feet in a slide that does not particularly care about the branding once you're in it. The name Thrillagaskar is a portmanteau of thrill and Madagascar, referencing the animated film franchise that Nickelodeon's parent company distributes. The slide's theming reflects this. The drop does not. What Thrillagaskar demonstrates, and what makes it genuinely distinct from every other slide on this list, is that the context of an experience changes the experience itself. The same drop, the same speed, the same physics, but indoors under fluorescent light, inside a building you drove to from a car park. The slide is 142 feet of engineered descent, and it's also somehow in a mall. That combination has not stopped people from riding it. The American Dream Water Park draws consistent attendance, and Thrillagaskar is the attraction that anchors the visit for most guests. The slide runs daily. The mall around it sells things. Both facts remain equally true and equally strange. All right, so Brazil appears twice on this list, and here's why. 4. Kilimanjaro, Wet n Wild, Itupiva, Brazil. Brazil has produced 2 of the most extreme water slides ever built, at 2 different parks in 2 different cities, and both of them earned their place on this list independently. That's not a coincidence. Brazil has a water park culture that operates at a different scale of ambition than most countries, and Kilimanjaro at Wet n Wild in Itupiva is the reason the second entry exists at all. 164 feet, that's the height of Kilimanjaro, not the mountain, the slide, though the naming is deliberate, and we'll come back to that. 164 feet is roughly equivalent to a 16-story building, which means it's taller than Insano by 29 feet, taller than Daredevil's Peak by 29 feet, and taller than Captain Spacemaker by 26 feet. Every slide we've covered so far fits underneath it with room to spare. Wet n Wild. Itupiva is located about an hour northwest of São Paulo, which makes it accessible to one of the largest metropolitan populations in the world. Greater São Paulo has around 22 million people. The park draws from that catchment, and it was built with the kind of scale that reflects it. Kilimanjaro is the centerpiece, the structure that the rest of the park organizes around, the thing you can see from the car park before you've even bought a ticket. The slide itself is a body slide, enclosed chute, near vertical drop. Riders reach approximately 62 miles per hour on the descent. The ride time is short, the height is covered quickly when the angle is that steep, and the splash pool at the bottom is where the speed finally has somewhere to go. The engineering required to safely decelerate a human body from 62 miles per hour to stationary in a controlled water environment is not trivial. And the splash pool design is as much a part of the slide's engineering as the chute itself. Now, the name. Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania is the tallest freestanding mountain on Earth. Its summit, Uhuru Peak, sits at 19,341 feet above sea level. The water slide in Itupiva is 164 feet tall. The ratio between those two numbers is approximately 118 to 1. The naming is not subtle, and it was never intended to be. The slide is called Kilimanjaro because the people who built it wanted a name that communicated a specific and unambiguous thing about what they had constructed: a mountain. The tallest one they could think of. What's genuinely interesting about Kilimanjaro's record history is how it moved. Insano held the world height record from 1989 to 2002. Kilimanjaro then claimed the record, held it, lost it to a slide in the United States, and at various points reclaimed a version of it depending on measurement methodology and record category. The back and forth between Brazilian slides and international competitors for the tallest waterslide record ran for years, and Kilimanjaro was at the center of that competition for a significant portion of it. The park around the slide is a full resort facility. Pools, accommodation, multiple attractions, built to the scale you'd expect from a park positioned as a destination rather than a day trip. Kilimanjaro anchors the offering in the same way a flagship attraction anchors any major theme park. It's the reason you make the trip, and everything else is what you do while you're there. From the top platform, the surrounding landscape of interior São Paulo state is visible in every direction. Agricultural land, low hills, the kind of Brazilian countryside that doesn't appear in travel photography because it's not the Brazil most visitors come to see. It's flat, it's green, it's very far below you. The descent takes approximately 8 seconds. 8 seconds from the top of a 16-story structure to the splash pool at 62 miles per hour, in a country that has been building record-challenging water slides since the late 1980s and shows no particular sign of stopping. Kilimanjaro is still operating, still one of the tallest water slides on Earth by any reasonable measurement, and still named after the tallest mountain on Earth, which is either an act of genuine ambition or a very confident piece of marketing. Probably both. 3. The longest. Royal Flush, Schlitterbahn, Kansas City. Every slide on this list so far has been defined by height. The number that mattered was always vertical. How far up? How fast down? How many stories of free fall before the splash pool ends the conversation? This entry breaks that pattern entirely. Royal Flush at Schlitterbahn in Kansas City, Kansas, is not the tallest water slide on this list. It's not close to the tallest, but it is 3,645 feet long. That's over 2/3 of a mile of water slide. That's longer than the runway at many regional airports. If you laid it out straight, which it isn't, it would stretch from one end of a mid-sized downtown to the other. The experience of a slide that long is categorically different from a vertical drop, and the difference is psychological as much as physical. A tall slide resolves quickly. The anxiety builds on the climb, peaks at the platform, and then 5 or 8 seconds later it's over and you're in the splash pool and the decision is behind you. Royal Flush doesn't work that way. Royal Flush takes over 2 minutes to complete. The anxiety doesn't resolve. It extends, shifts, reconfigures itself across multiple drops, tunnels, and directional changes, and every time you think the ride is settling into a pattern, the next section does something different. Schlitterbahn pioneered a technology called the water coaster, a system that uses pressurized water jets to push riders uphill within a slide against gravity, allowing a ride to cover horizontal distance without simply descending from a single starting height. Royal Flush uses this technology. It doesn't just go down, it goes down, levels out, goes up, turns, drops again. The ride profile is a series of linked sections rather than a single chute, and the uphill sections are where the technology earns its name. You're being pushed upward by water jets while sitting in a raft, which is an experience that doesn't map onto any intuitive understanding of how water slides are supposed to work. The raft holds multiple riders, so again, as with Captain Spacemaker, you're not alone. But the group dynamic on Royal Flush is different from a 14-story raft drop. 2 minutes is long enough for the social situation to develop. Long enough for someone in the raft to start laughing. Long enough for someone else to stop. Long enough for the ride to move through enough different phases that people's reactions to it shift mid-experience, which is not something a 5-second body slide produces. Schlitterbahn as a brand has a complicated recent history. The company was associated with the Verrückt slide in the same Kansas City park, a slide that held the world height record and was subsequently demolished following a fatal accident in 2016. Royal Flush is a separate attraction, with a separate engineering profile and a separate safety record, and it continues to operate. But the Schlitterbahn name carries that history, and the Kansas City park carries it specifically. Royal Flush was designed as a flagship attraction, The ride that demonstrated what the water coaster technology could achieve at maximum scale. 3,645 feet is not an incremental extension of the concept. It's a statement about what the concept is capable of, built at a scale that hadn't been attempted before and hasn't been significantly exceeded since. The Kansas City Park sits in a landlocked Midwestern city, which gives the ride a specific visual context. There's no ocean backdrop, no mountain landscape, no resort infrastructure framing the experience. It's a water park in Kansas, and the slide runs through it like something that decided it needed more room than the park was initially designed to provide. 2 minutes and change, over 2/3 of a mile. Multiple drops, multiple climbs, multiple opportunities for the ride to remind you that you're not done yet. Most water slides tell you exactly when they're finished. Royal Flush keeps that information to itself until it's ready to share it. Number 2, Verrückt, the slide that no longer exists. In August of 2016, a 10-year-old boy named Caleb Schwab was killed on a water slide in Kansas City, Kansas. The slide was called Verrückt. It was, at the time, the tallest water slide ever built. It closed the same day. It was demolished the following year, and the people who built it faced criminal charges. That's the end of the story. Here's the beginning. Verrückt, the name is German for insane, which tells you something about the register the designers were working in, opened in 2014 at Schlitterbahn's Kansas City Park, the same park that houses Royal Flush, which we just covered. The slide had been in development for several years, and its construction was documented in a television series produced for the Travel Channel called Schlitterbahn, the world's most insane water slides. The cameras were there for the engineering, the testing, the setbacks, and the eventual opening. The whole process was filmed as a story about ambition and record-breaking. It aired before the accident. The height was 268 feet, not a typo. 268 feet, taller than the Statue of Liberty from base to torch, which stands at 305 feet including the pedestal, or 151 feet from heel to crown. Verrückt was taller than a 25-story building. It was the tallest water slide ever constructed by a margin that wasn't close, and it held the Guinness World Record to prove it. The structure itself was a multi-drop raft slide. Riders sat in a multi-person raft and descended a near-vertical initial drop of approximately 17 stories, hit a brief uphill section, using the water coaster technology Schlitterbahn had pioneered, and then dropped again into the final descent and splash pool. The whole ride took roughly 40 seconds. The initial drop was steep enough that the raft became airborne at the transition point between the first drop and the uphill section under certain conditions of weight distribution and speed. That last sentence is the engineering problem that was never fully solved. Post-accident investigations and subsequent legal proceedings established that the raft could become airborne at the transition point when the weight load in the raft produced a particular combination of speed and momentum. When that happened, the raft left the chute. The netting installed along the sides of the slide, intended as a safety measure, became a hazard rather than a protection. Caleb Schwab died from injuries sustained when the raft left the chute. 2 other riders in the raft were also injured. The park closed Verrückt immediately. The Guinness World Record was quietly retired. The Travel Channel series, which had documented the slide's construction with evident enthusiasm, became a record of decisions that led to a child's death. Criminal charges were filed against the park's owners and a designer associated with the slide's construction. The legal proceedings extended over several years. The park itself, Schlitterbahn, Kansas City, eventually closed permanently in 2018, 2 years after the accident. The demolition of Verrückt in 2017 was not a complicated process structurally. The slide was a wooden and steel framework, and it came down in sections. What had taken years to design, permit, construct, and film for television was gone within weeks. The site where it stood is now empty. What Verrückt represents on this list is different from every other entry. Every other slide here is operating, drawing lines, selling tickets, producing the photographs and the walk of shame moments and the group raft dynamics we've been describing. Verrückt is not operating. It's not a slide you can choose to ride or choose to walk away from. The choice was made for everyone in 2016, and the reason it was made is specific and documented and permanent. The record it held, tallest water slide ever built, remains technically unbroken because no slide built since has exceeded 268 feet. The Icon Tower, which is number 1 on this list, stands at 250 feet and 4 inches. Verrückt is still, by measurement, the tallest water slide ever constructed. It's also the only one on this list that killed someone. Those two facts exist together, and neither one cancels the other out. 1. The Icon Tower, Chimilong Spaceship, Guangzhou, China. In October of 2024, a water park in Guangzhou opened a slide tower that currently holds the verified record for the tallest water slide on Earth. Not tallest in Asia, not tallest built since Verrückt. Tallest. Period. By current measurement, by current operation, by any reasonable standard of what the record means. The tower stands at 250 feet and 4 inches. That's taller than the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which reaches about 186 feet. It's taller than the Statue of Liberty measured from her heel to the tip of her torch, 151 feet. Stack 2 of those and you're still not at the top of the Icon Tower's platform. It is, by any physical comparison you want to make, an extraordinary amount of vertical distance to cover in a water slide. Chimilong Spaceship is the name of the park. Chimilong is a major Chinese entertainment group operating multiple resort destinations across the country, and Spaceship is the park's theme: space exploration, futuristic architecture, the visual language of science fiction rendered in fiberglass and steel, and a significant amount of water infrastructure. The Icon Tower sits within this context as the park's centerpiece attraction, the structure that the entire facility organizes around visually and operationally. The tower is not a single slide. It's a multi-slide structure, several different slide experiences descending from the same central tower, allowing the park to route different riders through different chutes from the same starting height. The engineering required to build a 250-foot water slide tower is not the engineering of a single chute bolted to a frame. It's closer to the engineering of a mid-sized building: foundation work, structural load calculations, wind tolerance at height, water pressure management across multiple simultaneous slide operations, and the logistical challenge of moving large numbers of people to a platform that sits 25 stories above the park floor. The climb takes time. That's not a trivial observation. Every slide on this list has a climb, and the climb is always part of the experience. The gradual accumulation of height, the view that builds with each step, the point at which the park below stops looking like a park and starts looking like a map. On the Icon Tower, that transition happens early and keeps going. By the time you reach the platform, the surrounding Guangzhou landscape is visible well beyond the park boundary. A major Chinese city, one of the most populous metropolitan areas on Earth, spreading in every direction below a platform that is 25 stories up. The slides themselves vary by chute. Some are enclosed body slides, some use raft configurations. The park offers multiple descent options from the same tower, which means the record-holding height is accessible through different ride profiles depending on what a rider chooses. The fastest descents reach speeds consistent with the other extreme slides on this list, somewhere in the range of 60 miles per hour, though the specific figures for each chute vary. What the Icon Tower does that no other slide on this list does, including Verrückt, which was taller by measurement, is operate at full scale, with full infrastructure in a purpose-built resort environment designed from the ground up to support it. Verrückt was a record-chasing structure grafted onto an existing park. The Icon Tower is the reason the park exists in the shape it does. The architecture of Chimilong Spaceship bends around the tower. The sight lines are designed to frame it. The entry sequence routes guests past it before they reach anything else. That's a different kind of ambition. Not just building the tallest slide, but building a park that treats the tallest slide as the organizing principle of everything around it. So you've climbed 25 stories. The platform is open. The city is below you, further down than anything else on this list by a margin that your body is going to explain to you in its own way. The chute is in front of you. The stairs back down are behind you. Every slide on this list offered the same moment. The platform, the decision, the gap between choosing to go and actually going. Leap of faith. Summit plummet. Insano and its 30%. Daredevil's peak with the ocean watching. All of them converge on this: a person, a height, and a choice that nobody else can make for them. The Icon Tower is 250 feet and 4 inches of that same question, asked at maximum volume. Are you going to go, or are you walking back down the stairs?